Today we're going to be talking about how to multi-box in Everquest. Now you may be thinking, I already know how to multi-box. You just click a bunch of copies of Everquest, it opens up, or I use something like ISBoxer. On a TrueBox rule set, you're only supposed to have one account for one PC. Some people have found ways around that using VMWare or other things so that they can launch multiple copies of Everquest. We're going to do it the right way. To me, cheating in Everquest is kind of like obeying speed limits. If the speed limit's 55, most of us will go 60 to set our cruise, some will go 65, and then you have those crazy assholes that are going over 100 miles an hour. Those are the macro questers. So in this video, we're going to cover a few things. First, an about multiboxing section, which will cover how I got into multiboxing, how I started, and why I did it. Second, we're going to cover the hardware. This is not something you can just roll onto your PC and do. Obviously, you need multiple PCs, which also means you're going to need multiple pieces of hardware. And third, software. This doesn't mean using things like macro quests or cheating. These are things that will enhance your gameplay, things that can be used in a legitimate way, and then these are things that can be doing the 60 and a 55. It's up to you as to whether or not you use them in an inappropriate way. You can use these pieces of software and still go 55 and a 55 if you want. The fourth thing we're going to talk about is configuration and setup, how all this hardware software comes together, and some suggestions on how to set up your multi-boxing setup so it's easy for you to use. So without further ado, here we go. Alright, so this section is going to cover why to multi-box. Now, the way that I got into multi-boxing is pretty simple. I have always played games with my wife at the time, and so when we came over to Everquest, it was always like, we're going to play together. Everything we do is together for gaming. So whenever I wanted to play, and she didn't, guess who had to run her character so that she couldn't be left behind? Right, I did. So automatically I'm playing two characters. And that was a druid and monk, I think, back in the live server in 2001 or so. And then I didn't really click on then, like I don't really want to play all these characters. I don't really need the multi-box, but I had to play her character because I couldn't leave her behind. Along that journey, of course, I had probably 4 or 5, maybe 6 really good friends, and we'd play together, yada, yada, yada. But then when it came time to do things like epic quests, I'm talking about things like farming raster for your pipes for the monk epic. Now, at the time that I started farming raster with like crap gear back on the live server, no money to buy anything, I had to do that myself. And to clear the PHs, I actually had to feign death, pull the camp, break, split it, make sure as they respawn that I cleared them one by one because I couldn't handle all of them at once with just, I think it was the druid monk. Maybe I was boxing another character at the time. Without boxing, I would not have been able to farm my epic piece because nobody wants to help you farm everything. Even back when the server was live, you could get a really good friend down there, but I camped raster for 3 days straight, and I think the PH timer was 17 minutes or something like that. I set an alarm. We didn't have cell phones really back then, but I set an actual alarm to go off every 17 minutes so that I would wake up and kill the PH. Finally, after 3 days of this and almost no sleep, raster did spawn, and I killed them, but that was really the first indicator that you need to have not just your main character, but backup characters and backup accounts so that you can do some of those things in the game. So a lot of people complain about boxers and multi-boxing, and I'm going to just be honest with you. If you think changing the rules to make it harder for someone that's used to playing 6 characters or 3 or 4 is going to make them want to group with you, or it's going to make them available to group with you, you're sadly mistaken. Boxers are not the reason that you're not getting groups. There's still people on the new TLPs and on new servers that love grouping, and they still get that social experience of just hanging out and killing stuff. But especially on TLPs, most of us are old. We got kids. I log on at sporadic times. I do not want to spend time looking for group, but it's not just the looking for group part of it. It's that I may have to just leave for 15 minutes randomly. I may have to leave early. I may only be there for an hour, and it's impossible to find replacements sometimes. You can get in a guild, and you can get guild groups too, but if you're not in the guild, it's hard to actually get any groups. This is not something that's new to Everquest because the game's so old. It was always fucking hard to get groups. Unless you were like starting on the new expansion and the new zones, and you had, you're basically doing the same stuff that everybody else. Everybody wants to get their levels, I mean, I remember when Pop released on live servers, you could get, playing at Baylor groups. And then all of a sudden these crowds started drifting to like Bastions of Thunder and then Plane of Fire. And if you didn't have the flags, there'd be like 10 of us sitting in Bastion of Thunder or 10 of us sitting in Plane of Valor, and the groups went away if you weren't in that initial rush. It's always been like this. They started server merging for a reason, trying to get more population in areas, but it's not anything new. And no, those boxers are not going to just drop their 6 and group with you. They're going to fucking find a way to play 3, 4, 5, 6 characters, whatever they have to do. And guess what? If they can't do that because you got a rule set that doesn't allow them to do that, they're just going to raid. They're not going to fucking group with you. So I do not want to hear any more bitching and crying about how boxers and all the shit is ruining the game and you can't get groups. We're old. Face it. The game's over fucking 20 years old. Nobody has time to look for a group and nobody has time to look for replacements. There are people, and maybe you're one of them, that enjoy the social aspect of the game. Even in the live servers, social aspect was like the sub third, fourth thing that I enjoy in the game. Like some of the people I met in game are still, so I've met them in real life. They're some of my best friends to this day still. We've played other games together, but I did not play for the social aspect of the game. I played because I liked accomplishing things. One thing people don't understand about multi-boxers is we have much more fun micromanaging our own group or even raid than we do playing solo. And another thing, I main tanked through most of the original Planes of Power, yada yada yada. I knew what heal rotations were, but I was never a cleric. I was never in those. When I started playing all these extra characters, I started to learn more about the actual fucking game. Like what all the roles are. What are the little tricks to the classes, Like when you could fucking use your pet to feign death pull and single pull shit with a Shadow Knight or Necromancer. That's not stuff that you get to practice when you're playing a fucking warrior. And that's your main, and you're grouping, and you don't have any alts. So the more alts I've had, and the more that I've had to lead my own groups or even small raids, the more I've learned from the game, and that's been a more enriching experience for me. For whatever reason, I enjoy gearing up a team or two, 6 to 12 characters. I enjoy gearing them up to maybe like a mid-level range or a mid to high-level range more than I enjoy raiding and have a top-level character. It's just more exciting and more fun for me. And I can do it on my own. The reason I don't play on private servers is I hear that argument too. Well, why don't you boxers go play on your own servers? Well, we like to do other things in the game. We like to raid. We like to have an economy so that we can sell goods that we farm. We can help, there are times when we'll help other people. There's times when we'll group with other people. But it's not the core of what we enjoy in the game. So you need to understand that there's a place for both. And if you enjoy the solo, social aspect of grouping and finding groups and role-playing and whatever the hell it is you like to do in the game, that's fine. Boxers also enjoy building teams. Some people are like, it's not really that fun. And this is a MacroQuest argument. People are like, what's the point of playing if the characters are automated? Well, yes, you can run scripts and automate a lot of functions of the classes, but I fucking love to be able to set things up for my own raid. I mean, it's not like they know how to react to certain scenarios, so even when they're scripted, you still got to set what spells they're casting, what percent you're healing at. And when you have to do it manually, that's requiring to be like a fucking DJ, at a fucking concert, like hitting all these different keys, having all these macros and stuff set up so that you can raid. So that aspect I tremendously enjoy with the game. I enjoy being able to try to set things up to do it on my own. Sometimes we group with other boxers that play 6 to 12 characters and we do our own raids and we hang out with each other. But even when we're hanging out and enjoying the social aspect of the game, we're fucking boxing 6 to 12 characters. So we may have 72 characters in the raid and there's only fucking 6 of us. We enjoy that. We pay for our accounts, etc. Even if you don't like the box, just playing one extra character adds a whole dimension to the game and it will actually make you a better player. So if you haven't tried multiboxing, I highly recommend that you do it. Other things in the game that caused me to multibox was not being a big raider. Me and my friends would always do like our own group stuff. So besides Mischief, where you can buy pretty much every fucking item, the old-fashioned Everquest back when it was live, whatever you could kill and loot, you could get to. So if you're not raiding, you don't got raid gear, Planes of Power is out, what are we really killing? We spent almost all of our time in Umbral Plains, farming like the cave bosses. We did things like kill the big Zelniak, and like we wiped a lot of times trying that, and that's when I figured out, hey, I need a fucking bard, for some resist. So we made a fucking bard and power level with it. We just kept adding stuff to our group. I used to use a druid to heal. That fucking is terrible when you're main tanking like a Rumble Crush in Umbral Plains, or Doomshay comes in Flurrying, and you got shitty ass gear. The only thing that we relied on was like AA. Even in this is Planes of Power era, we're farming Umbral Plains, Rumble Crush and Doom Shader, like the top bosses we can kill. If we were careful, we can make it through the Bastion of Thunder Tower bosses, and using the, like I said earlier, the Feign Death pet pull trick, we were able to get, I think it's Valenzac out of Planet Tactics, you know? And we didn't have fancy things like Show EQ. We actually had to run through the fucking zone and track. So we had a list of all these spawn timers, and we fucking enjoyed it. And that was boxing. On the TLP servers now, when you're starting out with the beginning content, like say the classic launches, you almost have to play solo or play a few. But what I find doing is I'll get like one character into a group, and as someone leaves, I'll just replace them with another one of my characters. But on the new servers and the new expansions, the new content comes out, it is crowded. Instances help with that a lot, but sometimes you just can't get camps. You've got to weave yourself into the camp. The other aspect of multiboxing, as far as a raid standpoint or even a group standpoint, but mainly our guild sometimes could be missing like shamans or another class, and if you have that class that you can bring in, you know, sometimes that makes you be able to do the raid. There are classes that are just, they're not popular. You really have to find people that actually want to play the class, because there's time periods in each expansion where classes like struggle to keep up, say they're damage dealers, you know, but you're still gonna need some of these classes. Like the bard is probably like not fun for a lot of people, but you still need a bunch of bards. Some people are just playing classes in the guild because that's what the guild needs. But when you can bring alts into the guild, you can do more splits, you can actually make the raid happen. Sometimes we're missing entire classes completely that we need. So multi-boxing has always been a thing, even on live. I can see how people have problems with macro questers, where the gameplay is pretty much automated. I don't so much have a problem with people playing manually, but I definitely don't have a problem with people boxing. Like, I get it. Like, people make this argument all the time where back in live, if you didn't see multi-boxers back on the live server, you weren't fucking paying attention. They were there. They were probably in your group playing 3 or 4 characters, but we weren't open about it. For me, like, if I would get my warrior into a group, and maybe it's Bastion Thunder, and we're doing some AA grinding in, you know, the fucking South Wing or whatever, and as people in that group started to leave, and like, hey, we need a healer. Oh yeah, I found one. Yeah, it's me, literally. Like, I'm playing 2 characters now. Someone else leave. Maybe I bring my buddy in. Within the next few hours, that entire group is made up of me and my buddies, because we needed the camp. If you remember back on live, there was no fucking instances that you could go to. So there was the Bastion of Thunder, and there was a South Wing. And if you weren't there, you were out of luck. There was no, let's get another instance. Like, you had to get in that group, then take over the camp. And if we timed it right, at least one of my friends was always in that group. So as replacements were needed, we would just pop up and hop in the group. That is the argument for multi-boxing. You can make whatever arguments you want against multi-boxing. I'm assuming that you are here to learn how to multi-box, or maybe learn about multi-boxing. So going into the next parts, we're going to talk about the hardware, software, and configuration. So stick with me, because we're going to get there. Alright, welcome to the hardware, software, and configuration section. The first thing we're going to start off with is hardware. We will start with monitors, as you can see over here. This is a 6-screen monitor stand that attaches to the desk via a clamp. I have a laptop in the bottom right and bottom left, and the reason I have laptop in the bottom right and bottom left is because I had laptops. Otherwise, those would be in the same setup with different PCs, and I had monitors there. The 2 middle screens in this setup are for my tanks. The top right and top left monitors run my Show EQ. Those are dual screen setups to each of the PCs connected to them. And as I said, the middle ones are the tanks, the laptop on the left and the laptop on the right. Those are where my clerics go. They are all individually controlled. They have their own keyboards and mice, and even the gamepads. So the way that you want to run the extra characters is through one of these quad screen displays. The thing with the quad screen displays is they have 4 HDMIs on the back, and they have this really nice picture in picture mode, if you can see that there. So we're using it as 4 split screens equally, but you could attach only 2. Uses 1 monitor, whatever you do. It's like a big ass TV, it's 43 inches, but well worth it. And we're running 4 mini PCs, which I got for under $200 off Amazon, on these setups here. And Those are i5s with 8 gigabytes of RAM, plenty enough to run EQ. And on the other side, I also have that. So that's 4 characters, and then 4 more characters up here with the 2 tanks and 2 clerics. This setup over here, this is for my 4 rangers, and if you notice, there is only 1 keyboard and mouse, and the reason is because I'm using software called Multiplicity. It allows you to use 1 keyboard and mouse to control all 4 screens as if they were 1 computer. So as I move the mouse through, I don't know if you can see this, I can move the mouse through all 4 screens. Same with the keyboard, you can pass keystrokes through. The downside to this is they're not all individually controlled, and you maybe want to press some keys or do something with the mouse on each individual ones without trying to move around. You could shut global hotkeys off of Multiplicity, and I know there's other alternative programs like Synergy which may allow you to set specific global hotkeys. I use Multiplicity because that's what was familiar to me. The way that you do this is this computer over here is the 4 Ranger setup. And so because they're the same class, I have hotkeys. So this gamepad here is configured to bind to the keyboard through a program called Joy to Key. So when I press the A button, for example, it may press number 3. Joy to Key allows you to program macros, I guess, or auto fire as I call it. So if I press the A, I can actually toggle it to rapidly fire the number 3 any amount of time I want. I have it set usually to 2 seconds. So what number 3 does on this setup here with the Rangers is it will assist my main tank. And because it is rapidly firing every 2 to 3 seconds, no matter what I do, once the characters are falling, they will always assist me as I change targets. A little bit of a problem here is you can't rapid fire auto fire because it just toggles it on and off. So what I do is I turn assist off so that they don't auto attack, and then I will have, say, the number 3 spam, or the A button spam number 3, which assists the main tank. I will set the B button on the controller to auto fire maybe 6, so 6 could be ranged attack. Also for buffs, since they're the same class, I have like the number 5, number 8, and number 9 will all cast the Ranger self buffs. It gets a little bit more difficult here. On this setup I have, currently on the TLP, a Bard, a Druid, a Shaman, and Enchanter. So you can set, say I'm auto firing or I press the 3 key, you can set up different social keys so that, you know, it's assist the main, do a pause in there, and cast spell gem 1 through 8, and you can make it appropriate for whatever class is playing. If you don't want that character to do something, then just leave the hotkey, because it's, you know, you have 0 through 10 or 1 through 10 on your hotbar. And it's going to press number 3, just leave 3 blank. And I do that where I have 4 buttons on this controller here, which I set, and it may auto fire the B, which could be bound to like the number 5 every 10 seconds, and that could be like a heal or a slow, and that could be the Shaman doing that. And what I'll do is the number 4 will be blank on all the other hotkeys, so it's pressing number 4 across all 4 screens, but there's only something in the number 4 slot on the screen I want it to use. So if that makes sense, so 3 could be the Bard, 4 could be the Shaman, spamming number 5 could be the Druid, and spamming number 6 could be the Enchanter's abilities, and then whatever you don't want active, so, you know, 3, 4, 5 are there's nothing there in the Enchanter, so 6 is the only one that actually takes effect. And that's pretty much how you have to do that. Synergy, I heard, might be easier, where you can just pass global hotkeys on the main here with, you know, I have the laptops, the 2 of them, those are my clerics, which I can also set up on the controller there, and I could auto fire complete heals or do complete heal rotations by auto firing with those controllers. I have individual controls, so I have keyboards and mice for all of these characters, 2 clerics and then 2 tanks in the middle here, keyboard and mice, so that I can grab control of the tanks or the clerics whenever I want. You can put anything you want on those. You could even put another quad display setup over there, and you can go 4, 4, and 4. So that way, if you don't mind using 1 keyboard and mouse. Now, you don't have to use 1 keyboard and mouse or Multiplicity on those mini PCs. Obviously, you could put 4 keyboards. These small keyboards work really well for it. You could easily put 4 keyboards and 4 mice in front of this big screen, and you could play it all manually. And if that's what you do, that's fine with me. So that covers all the hardware, and there will be links to everything below in the description. For software, I mentioned Joy to Key, which I will show you the configuration screen. So basically, this thing will support almost any controller, maybe even Xbox controllers that you hook into your PC, anything that's USB really.
The easiest way to do this, to figure out which button is which in this mapping here, is if you just were to press like the A, B, or whatever on your controller, these buttons here will flash yellow, so you'll know that the A maybe does button 3, maybe that's button 3. And then what you get in here is configuration. So say I wanted my A button, which happens to be the number 3, and I wanted to press the number 3 on the keyboard or emulate the keyboard stroke number 3. I could leave it like that, so every time I press the A on the controller, it presses number 3 on the keyboard. The way that you go 16 and 55 is down here with this auto repeat, and then you can start after a certain delay, or you could do times per second or 1 repeat per so many seconds. There's really never going to be a time when you need to do so many times per second. That will just spam the shit out of your game. Even like ranged attack, I have 1 per every 2 seconds or 1 per 1 second. So let's say we put 1 second here. So now it will auto repeat the number 3 1 time every 1 second. And then this toggle on and off feature is necessary, so that if I were now to press the A button on my controller, it will continue to auto fire number 3 on the keyboard every second. And then I will press the A button again, it will shut it off. That's what the toggle on and off is. And that way, if you're assisting and switching targets or whatever the macro or command or the keyboard stroke it's doing, it will continuously do that. And this is big when number 3 on all of my setup is the assist button. So if you have like melee characters and they're on follow, and you assist, and then you can place the mob in between your tank and the melee characters, they're always switching targets with you. But this can also be bad if you're going to be mezzing, or for example, if I have the rangers like auto firing or range attacking, you can like target mobs out in a field and have them pull. But if you're also targeting with your tank to switch, they can just start rapidly firing out into the field, and sometimes you'll pull too many mobs on accident, especially if you use like tab targeting or other things that are kind of easy instead of specifically targeting or using your extended target windows. So you do have to be careful with it, but this is the whole program. It's free and it's very simple to use, and it works with almost any USB controller. And the USB controllers that I use are seriously like $5 to $10 maybe. So this is joy to key.
The most important piece of software that I have not mentioned yet is actually VPN. I use Surfshark. You don't have to use Surfshark. The reason I use Surfshark is because it has unlimited devices. So not only do I use it for my 12 PCs, I use it for my phone and everything else, and other PCs in the house. If you do not have a VPN and you are to press a bunch of keystrokes of 4 characters, and especially if you're using Multiplicity and you press the number 3 key and it shoots to all 4, it will disconnect you. You will get what's called TrueBoxed. You need a VPN for multiple keystrokes to be coming from multiple computers on the same connection. By having Surfshark on all of these, it acts like they're not even connected to the same network. So pressing 12 keys at the same time, it comes from 12 different places. So you'll never get TrueBox. The VPN is absolutely necessary, especially if you're going to be auto firing or using Multiplicity, where you're sending rapid keystrokes through it all at once. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. I will answer everything as I get to it. I don't think I left anything out as far as hardware, software, and the configuration settings. Basically, it's done through leaving the hotkey buttons blank while auto firing, or even if you don't auto fire and you press 3, 4, 5, 6 on the keyboard, make sure that those corresponding hotkeys, because since it's going to be passed through to all of them, make sure it does what it's supposed to do, or it's inactive on the other screens. And like I said, if it's all the same class, you can pretty much replicate the setup. But when you get over here and you got 4 different classes running on these setups, it gets a little rough. You got to think a little bit more about what your hotkeys are doing and what you're passing through. You can press Control, I think, 3 times and disable it going through and take individual control of each of the screens. You want to try to avoid that because you're already controlling 4 individually up front, or at least I am in my setup. So if you wanted to do just 4, you could just get one of these 4 screens and work with it that way. It's a 43-inch monitor, so each split is pretty big. I think like 22 inches or 23 inches or something. 21.5, I guess, is accurate. Or you could just have one of these 4 quadrant displays here for 4 of them, and then you could run a laptop or 2 and have control 2 characters for a full group of 6. But this is how I do it, and obviously if you have any suggestions too, I would love to hear those, because if there's a better way, I'm all for it. But otherwise, thanks for watching, and I hope that you learned something about multiboxing, and I hope that you're going to try it out at least and enhance your gameplay and your game knowledge and become a better overall player. Alright, until next time.